Captain's Log, Episode 49. This week's episode of the Beer Vengers podcast is sponsored by Astoria Beer and Cheese Ditmars, located at 35-11 Ditmars Boulevard in Astoria, Queens. Enjoy their eclectic array of craft beer, artisanal cheeses, and specialty grocery items at Astoria Beer and Cheese Ditmars, home bar to yours truly, Captain Porter Brown Stout. When we started the Beer Vengers podcast over a year ago, in the late summer of 2020, our mission was to share our friendship, our experiences, and our beer with anyone who cared to join us. But one reason it happened when it happened is that I've spent the better part of my adult life making my living by performing in front of live audiences. Since that part of my life was on indefinite hiatus, I decided to explore the ways I could create something to share with the world within the walls of my New York City apartment. In a nutshell, that's how the Beer Vengers podcast came to be. Shortly after we began, I read about an open-source beer created by Gun Hill Brewery in association with the Happy Hour guys called Curtain Up. The recipe would be available to any brewery that wanted to use the proceeds to benefit workers in industries affected by the loss of live performance. Obviously, this cause is personal to me, and we talked about Curtain Up whenever we could. We knew we wanted to dedicate an entire episode to this project, but we also wanted to share as many varieties as we could. Though Curtain Up now has 76 and counting participating breweries, this was a challenge due to varying production schedules and the popularity of the beer. When I finally realized that the time might be right, I reached out to the Happy Hour guys, Mark Aldrich and Jimmy Ludwig. They immediately and graciously agreed, and on top of that offered to bring Dave Lopez of Gun Hill Brewing with them. I'm proud of all 49 episodes we've done so far, but this one in particular holds a unique and special place for me. Thanks to Mark, Jimmy, and Dave for helping us help them to spread the word about Curtain Up. Remember to like, star, and subscribe whenever that feels appropriate. And send us your emails at thebeervengers@gmail.com if you have any questions, suggestions, or if you just like hearing us talk about you on the show. And now, without further ado, please enjoy episode 49, Curtain Up.
Well, we're the Beer Vengers, Beer Vengers, Beer Vengers.
We're the Beer Vengers.
Welcome to the Beercast, everyone. Coming to you from an undisclosed location in Astoria, Queens, I am Captain Porter Brown Stout.
And coming to you from an undisclosed location in the County of Kings, it is I, the Beer Wonder.
And we are the
Beer Vengers.
Yeah, very succinct that time. We didn't do it overindulge too much. That's right. We are the Beer Vengers. You're the Beer Vengers, and we've got a really exciting show for you out there today. It's unprecedented in more than one way. But we have some really exciting guests here today. 3 guests. We've never had more than one guest, but we have 3. We have the Happy Hour guys, and I'll say their names in alphabetical order. That's Mark Aldrich. Aldrich or Aldrich?
Aldrich, you are correct.
Aldrich. I'll get it right the first time. Good.
And
Jimmy Ludwig.
Ludwig.
Very good, Jimmy Ludwig. And also from Gun Hill Brewery in the Bronx, welcome Dave Lopez.
Thank you for having me. Good to be here.
Good to have all of you here. Isn't this exciting, Beer Wonder?
I know, it's incredible to see more than just 2 to 3 faces on a screen. Feels like we're all out drinking together, except still in tiny boxes.
That's true. And we have a very specific reason why the 5 of us are here today, but I think we should get to the pours, and the reason we're all here today will very quickly become apparent. Wow, usually the guest goes first, Beer Wonder, but since we have 3 guests, I don't know, who do you think we should start with, since you're all the arbiter of politeness here on the podcast?
Perpetually. I feel like, it is sort of like skill before beauty. I think we should let the brewer go first. I think that's
I think that's a great idea. Yeah, Dave,
exactly.
Absolutely.
What beer do you have today?
So I have the Sloop version of Curtain Up.
Oh, very good.
Yes. So this one, they just released, I don't know, what was it, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
So very fresh.
Very fresh. I'll give you a little pour here so you guys can see.
Beautiful.
Oh, really nice.
Yeah, lovely orange. Oh, and we're getting a good sound from that one. Good head production there. It's looking beautiful.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. All right. I guess since I introduced them in alphabetical order, then the happy hour guys can go in reverse alphabetical order. So, Jimmy, why don't we see what you have?
I have the Alewife Brewing version of the Curtain Up beer.
Oh.
And there we go.
Oh, beautiful crack on that one.
Very nice crack indeed.
Very much. And
Ooh, there we go. Nice hazy look to it. Disappearing a little bit into the.
yep, all right, it's a Zoom thing.
It is. It is. Very nice hazy IPA you got there.
Yeah, a little bit darker than the Sloop version. A little
Mhm.
more sort of a tangerine hue to it. And a great, stone fruit, hoppy, juicy nose coming at me.
Excellent. Well, Mark, what do you have there?
I reached back into the vault today. One of the great things about Curtain Up is they've been popular everywhere they've gone. So a bunch of them were sold out. But in the back of my fridge, in a very special place, I found one of our original versions from Gun Hill Brewing. Normally, I would not recommend having an IPA on about 10 months worth of aging, but I tried one from the same batch just a few days ago to make sure that all would be going well, and I was shocked at how well this beer held up. Really, really shocked. So,
All right. Well, we know Gun Hill is consistently good, so glad to hear it.
Absolutely.
Oh, you
stays
guys
as
are
it
too
should be.
kind.
Oh, that's pretty.
Well, it is your
That's
original
so
recipe, isn't it,
gorgeous.
Dave?
It is. It is.
See, that's just beautiful right there.
That's a really nice one.
so
Beautiful sort of orange
yeah,
color.
I'm excited about it. It was one of my favorite beers when it first came out, and I have to say it's a different beer now, but it is still delicious.
Oh, very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
very excited.
All right. Well, continuing with the theme we've got going on here, I will be enjoying the Curtain Up beer as well, but this is from our friends over at Torch and Crown, a good-looking double IPA.
Yeah.
So
Very good.
let's say hi to them and see what
As
that
featured
looks
on the most recent episode of the Happy Hour guys.
That is right.
like. Indeed.
Yes, indeed.
All right.
That was
Looking
fun.
good.
That was fun.
Oh,
Ooh, that's
it
great.
Smells fantastic.
Really
too.
hazy.
Yep.
Nice.
Mhm. It's a beautiful little
Excellent.
one there.
Very good.
Perfect. And then
When
Captain.
we say
All right.
say double on this one, and we put it in quotes because that's 7.5. I believe.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. It's a light double. It's a light
It's a
double.
light double.
I like, yeah.
Very
Cheers.
good. Okay, well, the theme is quite apparent. I also have Curtain Up beer, and this one is from our friends at Keg and Lantern. I'm not sure when that was brewed. Either one of you guys have any idea?
That was late spring, early summer, I believe.
Yeah, May, June, I believe.
Okay, so moderately aged, but still
Yep,
pretty recent. All right, let's take a look at this one. There we are.
Pretty sounds.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah,
a, it's a,
okay,
it's a
let's take-
beautiful spectrum of oranges today. Very exciting.
All right, gentlemen. Everyone, raise your glass. Let's have a cheers to all. Our official Curtain Up show.
Cheers, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know we said that the if you're paying attention, or even if you're only paying a little bit of attention, you probably figured out our theme today is Curtain Up beer. We've been talking about this almost since we started the podcast about a year ago. We started the podcast. The first episodes came out in October, and very shortly after, we read about this great beer that was coming out to benefit people like ourselves who are having a little harder time finding work in the era of the pandemic. It's interesting. The only other show we've done like this one was our 5th episode, which was all focused around Black is Beautiful, which had a very similar theme. And coincidentally, the one I drank that week was the Gun Hill version, which is still my my favorite one, I think. I also really like the 6-point barrel aged version, but the Dulce de Leche one was fantastic.
Thank you very much.
But this, although it's a similar theme, similar approach, similar idea that it's encouraging breweries everywhere to make their own version of this recipe that's originated at Gun Hill, each place can choose where who the proceedings go to. So it's national and local at the same time, which is one of the things that I love about it. Any tasting notes on any of these beers? I'm curious to hear, Mark, how that you mentioned before about how it's aged well, even though it's a little different than the one you had a year ago.
Yeah, it is. It aged really well. I would order if I were out. I would order this, and then I would order it again. Um, it it mellowed the carbonation. Obviously, it is a little softer. The mouthfeel is a little bit softer, and it's sort of punched up the stone fruit as opposed to the tropical, which is where it was originally. But there's also like a really nice undercurrent of grapefruit right now. It's
Mm.
just, I mean, I think it's a testament to Gun Hill and to the base recipe that they were incredibly kind enough to give to this project. That the beer is just solid. You know, it's everywhere it's gone. Everybody who's taken a stab at it has done an amazing job.
Mhm.
But I still come back to the original. And yeah, I mean, I wish I could run to the corner and buy a 4 pack of this right now, even if it was 10 months old.
Can
I
you
know
tell
we
Really
can
could.
you
we've
tell all
tried.
can you tell all the people that go and rate beers on Untapped about that, Mark? Would you mind doing that?
We're trying to get Dave to brew this beer again. Dang it!
Well, the funny
He's
thing
holding
is,
back on
the information on Untapped is a little bit unreliable because since the Gun Hill
It is.
logo is on the can, there's a lot of things that are listed as the Gun Hill one, which I think might be
Right.
from other people.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
I have definitely seen that quite a few times.
And
It
some
was
breweries listed it inadvertently as curtains up. So so there are a couple that fell through the cracks that way. So yes, I would not rely solely on Untapped for any information on this. Go straight to the
no, that
breweries themselves.
Mhm.
no, that's smart. Yeah, I was sort of the other day trying to figure out where I could find different versions of it, and I went back and forth between beer menus and
Hmm.
Untapped, and
Yeah.
yeah, I came this close to finding the one by 18th Ward.
Oh,
Allegedly, I know Mark, you said you're in Astoria as well.
yes.
There's a
Yeah.
place over on 30th Avenue, way down by 21st Street, that claims to have the Big Alice version still, but
Oh,
I didn't make it
Huh.
down there to check out.
Wow.
They call themselves the Beer Cave. It's right around the corner from the Boys and Girls Club down there.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
not far from where I live. I have never heard of it. I'm shocked, and I will go there soon.
Well, interestingly, I used to work at a
he's already
theater company
left.
that was
He's on his
based
way
at.
now.
Mhm.
I used to work at a theater company that's right around was based in the Boys and Girls Club, and that's where we would always go to get our
Oh,
concessions. I don't ever remember seeing the name Beer Cave on it either,
yeah.
but that's how
It's
they're
a
listed
new one
on
on me.
what. But I did like
Interesting.
that block. There's not a lot in that block, so when I saw it on the thing,
No.
like that must be the place they mean.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I can't. That is a quiet block, as we say. So I'll take a 5 minute walk, and I'll find out exactly where it is.
Now, if you
Well,
of
Dave,
all these different ones, oh yeah, I think
I was
Beer
going to
Wonder
say,
was
well,
thinking the
Dave,
same thing I was.
yeah, I'm curious. We've got, this is sort of your original recipe, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but tell me a little bit about how the sloop is working for you as someone who started this whole trend.
So it's funny. I told Mark and Jimmy, and I actually told the guys from Sloop this last week when we were at Beer Culture for an event, that I actually think that this is the closest one that I've had to our original recipe.
Oh,
Really?
wow.
And I don't know because they didn't list it on here. I don't actually know what if anything they changed. So if they didn't change anything, that might be why. But this just has the same mouthfeel, texture, really really easy drinking feel to it. Even though the ABV is still, I think it's still the same as ours.
I think it
65, yeah.
is. Yeah.
Yes, it is. So I mean, I if you put this side by side right now from my memory from what ours was, I wouldn't be able to tell you the difference. I don't think.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, a testament to doing it right, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And I'm going to weigh in really quickly on the alewife version, which is interesting because some breweries, we had breweries do crazy things with this recipe. We had some go quite far afield. We had a fruited sour version
Oh, wow.
come up upstate New York. There was an IPL version up in Rochester. And we've had a chance to taste some of those. We tasted the IPL, which we really, really loved. That was Swiftwater in Rochester. But a lot of when breweries would mess with the base recipe, they wouldn't really mess with the malt bills so much, but they would definitely mess with the hop bill.
Sure.
And Alewife is a testament to that because they sort of changed the hop lineup entirely and centered it around Idaho 7, which, to be totally honest, is not my favorite hop. It has that earthiness to it. You know what I mean? It's a little bit funky isn't quite the right word, but but the way they integrated it into this, the way Patrick Donaher and it's Kier, right? Kier's their brewer now. The way they sort of built that up, it's fascinating. And I really like this beer, and I don't usually if I see Idaho 7 on a listing, I'm like, I'm probably going to pass on that IPA. I'll probably go to a different one. But this is a really interesting sort of interweaving of that. It's and again 6.5, just like the other one. And I really like what Patrick and Keir are doing over there in Sunnyside. First brewery in Sunnyside in many years, I believe. So.
Yeah, that's right. I know you did a show there. I didn't get around to visiting them for the first time till about sometime this summer, but I've been back several times.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. In Astoria, there's a bit of a city bike dead space that happens right before you get over that bridge. So I just got basically bike. It's Sunnyside, Woodside. There's just sort of like a weird little dead zone. It still means you can drive up to about the point where you're 10-minute walk away. So it's not terrible. But yeah, you get like right up to Northern Boulevard and you have to walk the rest of the way. And worth the trip, I would say.
Well, so
they're going to be a fantastic space too. When they really open up and they get their rooftop going, that's going to be a special place.
Yeah, I think so.
Very cool. Well, you said you've had a couple different styles. I know I've got what you guys are calling the light double IPA on this one, but I mean, how many doubles are out there? Is this one of your only ones?
That's only the second.
Okay. Yeah, one of two.
It's the second. Masthead in Cleveland did a double, but unfortunately, we're not in Cleveland, and we weren't able to get any of it. So this is the only double that we actually got to try.
And I'm very sad that we missed that because one of the last set of gigs I did before the pandemic hit was at Great Lakes Theater in Cleveland, and the company housing is a block and a half from Masthead, and I think I was there every other day. I mean, they make some really good beer, and the fact that we weren't able to get any of that was, which was great. I mean, sure, it disappeared really quickly, but we were sad to miss that one.
Yeah, that one was cool. It benefited the Cleveland Playhouse in addition to the Actors Fund. So some of that money stayed in Cleveland, and the rest dispersed throughout the country. So, yeah.
Well, it is smooth. It's floral. It's a delicious beer, and certainly does not feel like it's 7.5%. So mildly dangerous as well.
Yep.
I just want to plug Torch and Crown too, because that's a gorgeous space.
Gorgeous.
If people haven't been there, it's the only craft brewery. It's the only brewery in Manhattan, and they opened in the midst of the pandemic, and
that's right.
That's actually not true. There is another. There is another brewery. They just don't. It's a tiny one down on the Lower East Side, called That Which Ails You.
Yes.
Oh, I think we talked about this on the show once before. I haven't been there, but I did hear about it. How are they doing?
All right.
I've only been there once. They have a really nice a really good outdoor setting there. It's a tiny indoor space, but the outdoor space is great in the back of the facility. So, and they're making more unique stuff. So it's worth checking out. And you would never ever know that they were there unless you literally ran into it.
Field trip.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll go there, and I want to go to Torch and Crown again as well. In fact, Torch and Crown was one of the once we were all vaccinated and we started feeling a little more comfortable going out, we had a whole Beer Venger trip out there. I don't think you were there, Beer Wonder, but I was there, and Hophead Huck and Cider Girl and all of us.
Oh no, I remember it was an incredible. Yeah, it was one of our first big adventures.
Oh no, yeah, you were there. You were there. I can't remember. Every once in a while, you're a very busy Beer Wonder sometimes, so I can never remember. Like I think you were there. Of course you were there. Yeah. But yeah, we had a great time going down there. Yeah, this one, Keg and Lantern, I will have to admit, I don't think I'll have anywhere near as sophisticated tasting notes as Jimmy had, because IPA isn't usually my style. I enjoy IPAs, but I'm always, you probably figured it out from my chosen name, Captain Porter Brown Stout. I tend towards the darker stuff. Void of Light is one of my favorite ones of all time. But this is really good. I do think it's keeping with the way the hazy IPAs in general go down a little more smoothly than the West Coast IPAs. They're not as hop forward and easy, as you keep saying, easy drinking. And I'm enjoying it very much.
Yeah, there've been some really great variations on this base recipe. And when you're fortunate enough, and David's going to aw shucks us again when we say this, but when you're fortunate enough to have a really solid base recipe, there's so many cool places you can go. And to this day, Mark and I, we've had a lot of these versions now. We keep going, it's good. This is good, but it's not as good as Gun Hill. You know what I mean? And Sloop and Torch and Crown, the last 2-2 release, were two of our all-time favorites, but they still didn't sort of they still didn't take us back to where we started.
I'll chime in and say that I bet you if you had one of theirs first, you'd have felt differently. But I still appreciate the sentiment.
Well, we're fans of yours, Dave. You know that.
I know.
I was going to say, you're literally surrounded by Gun Hill fans today. So.
Oh, good,
Absolutely.
good. I'm glad. I'm very happy to hear that.
Yeah, I haven't been there in a while, but I did order by mail from you a couple times last summer. Not this past summer, the 2020.
For home delivery?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I wish we could still do that.
I went ahead and became a Canon Club member. I went for it. Yeah.
Oh, congratulations.
Oh yeah, it's been great.
Excellent.
Great.
Well, now that we've talked about all of these tastes, I know that some people who are listening from the beginning, and we've been pushing this for a while, and even they probably don't know everything. I don't know everything about how this whole thing to be. So since we're going to talk in a more formal-ish way about Curtain Up Beer, I think it's time to learn the origin story. That's right. It's time for the origin story of Curtain Up Beer. And I know this goes back a little ways. Happy Hour guys, you've been doing your thing for 13, 14 years?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
But really, this came out of a project that really brought. I know you're both actors who have been on Broadway and television and film, but specifically the Broadway connection. That the way you really first brought beer and Broadway together was with the Broadway Brews project. How did that first come about?
Jimmy, why don't you take this and I'll do Curtain Up? Yeah,
you got it. For years, we were. We did the pilot for the show in 2006, and then we started producing regularly in 2008, and we're at nearly 400 video episodes now, and I feel like we've been saying that for years because we started saying that when we were like 350. So, but the whole thing with the Broadway Brews project was we had our beer lives and we had our actor lives, and they didn't really interconnect. The Venn diagram was not overlapped. There was no Venn. There was no diagram. We were like, we have to get these two things to connect. And how do we do that? And it was like, well, we could make a beer with a Broadway show, I guess. I mean, but what's the point, right? And then it was the key was when we realized the charitable nature of the craft brew industry, and that beers that give back make a difference. So that was the key. That was the catalyst. And the Broadway Brews project was born. And we had the idea, so we'll get a Broadway cast together with a local brewer, hopefully local, if not, but a craft brewer, and they will collaborate on the recipe based on the theme of the show and what the cast is into. And then together the cast will choose who the beer is being brewed for, what cause. And then Mark and I would shoot the entire process, and it would come out as a 3-episode arc. So the first episode being they meet, they come together and they discuss ideas. The second episode is brew day, when the actors would go to the brewery and actually put the beer together. And then third episode is the release party, the big party. And at that point we bring in the charity partner and they get a check cut to them, or they've already gotten a check cut to them. And we talk about that on camera, and it's a lot of fun. And so I started pitching this, and I got the equivalent of a blank stare from lots of Broadway producers. Lots of, what? Sorry, what? And also just got plain ignored. At one point, I had a call with a Broadway producer which shall remain nameless, and he said, I really don't see what this has to do with us. And it was a rock and roll show. It was like a jukebox rock and roll musical. And I was like, come on, booze and rock and roll. Those two things go together.
You sold me, yeah.
Yeah,
Silence. I mean, they said nothing. They were like, cricket, cricket, cricket. Like, oh, God. So then eventually we did get our first yes. And it was a little show called Hamilton.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah. Struggling up and comer, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think they'll be okay. I mean, hopefully, I think they'll be okay. And so Hamilton said yes. And then we brought in Dave. We brought in Gun Hill to do that first beer. And that was, I think Dave can talk a little bit about what a sort of seismic event that ended up being, just because Hamilton at that point was, nothing could touch them. And all of a sudden they were doing a beer. They were doing a Broadway beer. And we just got coverage from all over the place. And I think, Dave, you were getting calls from all over the world, weren't you?
We were. I mean, we got calls from all over the country with people looking to try the beer, and then we even got calls from Germany and a couple other countries in Europe with people asking if we could ship them the beer because they were Hamilton fans.
Yeah. By the way, that beer is a rye saison that they built beautifully at the brewery, and we called it Rise Up Rye.
Perfect.
So-
Yeah.
And
That's
still,
right in with the music. Yeah.
still being sold at the theater. We just dropped
Oh,
off
cool.
more beer today for them. so.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Yeah, at the Richard Rogers.
It
And
sounds
what
like-
we're hearing at the Richard Rogers, and we love this, is that they can't actually give people the can in the theater. They have to pour it into like a sippy cup and give them to that way. But people they ask for the can. They're like, "This is
Oh.
great. Can I have the can as well? Can I have the empty?" And they take that with them as a collectible.
I'm glad
so
they're
our-
allowed to, because with what you pay for a beer at a Broadway show.
Well, and the crazy thing is that's what you pay for a craft beer and for a Miller Genuine Draft or whatever, right? There's-
Absolutely. Yeah.
True.
you know, it's still $20, whatever the beer, whatever the quality of the brew is. So that was our first beer, and then Mark and I thought, well, where do we stop? No, we make the Broadway 6-pack, and there were 5 shows. There was Hamilton first, and then School of Rock, which we collaborated with Carton Brewing out in Atlantic Highlands for that, and we did what was it, Mark? It was an Imperial Black IPA
That is correct. Yes.
called School of Hops.
Love it.
That was that beer. The next was Waitress, and that beer was called It's for Adrian, which is Adrian is the name of the woman who wrote the film script, who died tragically and was a big inspiration to the whole thing. And that was a cherry
Cream.
cream
Fits.
that 6 Point did for us. Then the next was the Phantom of the Opera beer. That was a black lager done by Hardywood Park Brewing down in Virginia, which was weird because they just called us and were like, we have to do this. So
They make some great beers. Did you actually get like with all the other ones? Did you get the cast out to Virginia to participate that we did with it? Oh, wow.
We did.
they did.
Yeah.
They were incredibly generous to us, and that was a really fun.
To do that while you're doing 8 shows a week is very impressive.
They did it on their day off,
Yeah,
literally.
wow.
Yeah.
Gave us their day off to go all the way down to Virginia. And then the 5th beer was the Come From Away beer, which they ended up calling it an Islander Pale Ale that we did with Fiberos. And then just as we were getting ready to do the 6th beer, COVID and the shutdown. And Broadway closed and everybody lost their jobs. And Mark was on tour and got stranded in Columbus, Ohio. And I had several jobs lined up and they all disappeared in a week or two. And everybody has the same stories. So Mark, you can take it from there.
Well, so we sort of went back and forth for quite a while about how do we approach this? How do we do something that's meaningful? What's important right now? Like how do we respond to what's going on, not just in the world, but in our industry? And 6 months later, I mean, we obviously pivoted. We did a bunch of Zoom interviews and things like that to just sort of keep our feet in the game. And we did one with Dave, which was really fun. And I did that from my hotel room in Columbus, Ohio, where I stayed for 6.5 weeks after our show closed down. And then finally, in September of 2020, we felt confident enough to go to Sloop Brewing, actually, and shoot our first in-person episode in quite some time. Obviously, we were being very safe. Everybody was very aware. This is pre-vaccine, everything. But we talked to Joe Turco over there, and he put our minds at ease, and we talked to each other. And we went out and we shot our first episode at their really great space out there, which is now finally open and totally worth it, in Hopewell Junction, New York, and worth a visit. And then afterwards, we sat outside, socially distanced, under a tent, which is no longer there at Sloop, and with Joe, Jimmy, and I, and we just sort of batted some ideas around, and it came up that this was sort of in the heyday of All Together and Black is Beautiful, and all of that was going on.
So that's certainly what the Black is Beautiful beer was one of the inspirations. Certainly,
Yes.
It sure was. we've always said, this is one of the things we've said for years in our show, is that brewers make great neighbors. And a lot of people don't know that because they do so much to give back to their community. They take care of the people around them. That they're really responsible uh, citizens and do so much more than people realize. So all of this came up in the discussion, and we just sort of looked at each other and said, this has to be big. Like none of our colleagues are working. Our industry is shut down. We have no idea when it's coming back. If we're going to do something, it has to tackle that. So we came up with the idea to do an open source beer to benefit arts workers who were in the midst of being shut out of their employment. But we wanted to make sure that it didn't just disappear into the void. So it didn't just go to the Actors Fund, which does amazing work all around the country. And
I've
but
gotten
we
help from
wanted to
them
make
before. Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, they're fantastic. But we wanted there to be a tangible community involvement as well. So we made sure that the breweries knew that they could choose a local arts entity, whatever that was to them. And we've had high school drama departments to local arts councils to major regional theaters, and everything in between. So we said, we're going to do this, and we talked to Sloop actually, and Joe was very excited about it. And then we sent an email to Dave because we had experience with Dave, and we knew he'd done Black is Beautiful, and we just wanted to know what we were getting into. Like what are the pitfalls? What should we look out for? What should we emphasize? Like is this insane? What are we doing? And and Dave wrote back, and it's probably the most fortuitous email we've ever received, because he said, "I'm happy to talk you through all of that stuff, but if there's an opportunity there," because at that point we thought we might be partnering up with Sloop, who we love. But Dave said, "I'd love to take the lead from the brewery side of this, if that works out." And as it turned out, Sloop's brewing schedule was very crowded, and as excited as they were about the project, they probably weren't the right fit at that point. And so we very eagerly responded to Dave and said, "You know what? That sounds like a really good idea." Um,
Let's talk.
and
Let's talk.
and it was, and I'm going to turn it over to Dave now for his perspective on this. But I will say that probably the luckiest thing that happened to us is that once again Gun Hill stepped forward when we were looking for someone to sort of hold our hand and get us through this, and we will be forever grateful to them for that.
Absolutely.
So from my perspective, one of the reasons, or the main reason why I felt as strongly as I did, and I wanted us to sort of take the lead on this if possible, was because I'm born and raised in New York City, and so I know just how important the arts and the theater is to the lifeblood of the city. And so I felt this was a really good opportunity, not just for me as a brewery owner or as, with my team or anything like that, but also me as a New Yorker to be able to really make a contribution and try and help people out that were going to be struggling for a very long time or an indefinite period of time. One of the things that we did, and this is a collective, we, Jimmy, Mark, and myself, when we were trying to come up with this, is we really wanted to make this so that it was not going to be cumbersome for a brewery to be involved, because that was also something that I really like. As much as I wanted to help the arts and help everyone who was going to be struggling, it's not like the brewery community was sitting and rolling in it during this time either, and still are not, so it had to be something where everyone could really win. And so one of the things we set out for, we talked about different ideas for different kinds of beers, different recipes, and for better or for worse, this is the style we settled on because we figured it would be the easiest to get more people in because they figured you're already making something like this. But I wanted it to be something where the base recipe wasn't going to be crazy expensive, where the brewery would feel that in order for them to even just cover their costs or whatever, that it would be they'd have to charge a lot of money for the beer. So I wanted to make something that I was confident everyone would be able to go, okay, the ingredient costs aren't that bad. I can still make my normal margin at a reason and charge a reasonable price, and then tack on a little bit of money on top of that, and have that at a minimum, have that be my donation.
That's smart.
And that way the consumer is not being charged or being price gouged in any way. So I feel like we came up with something that really did accomplish that. I think, unfortunately, a lot of people have sort of missed that point that you can still make your full margin and just, add a little spread to that, and that the consumer will be willing to pay that little additional amount. But I think as more and more people hear about it, they'll realize that, hey, if I can make money on this and it actually is a good recipe and a good beer, what's my downside? Because we all know that they're making something similar like this in their brewing schedule anyway.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
And that is a conversation that Mark, especially because Mark's been doing a lot of the cold emails to breweries around the country. A lot of the responses we get are breweries saying, hey, we did this charity beer, we did that charity beer, we're just tapped out right now, we can't do this. And we're saying that's not what this is.
Right.
For you to make money and also charge a little bit extra and take that little bit extra and send it off to people who really need it. It's not about you donating anything. It's not about you donating ingredients. It's not any of that. But there's a certain perception around charity beers, quote unquote charity beers, that I think was a little rough, a little hard for us, especially because it got kind of thick in there, right? After All Together and then Black is Beautiful. So there's been some education we've had to do along the way.
I mean, I also think, sorry to cut you off, but I think that
No.
other thing that's really, it's almost, I mean, obviously one of the, raising money for all these beers is super important, but particularly with Black is Beautiful and with this, not so much with All Together, because All Together, obviously everyone knows what that was all about. And everyone knew, you could see the hospitality industry was shut down.
Mhm.
But I don't think that people fully appreciated just how bad the theater community, the performing arts community was going to be impacted by this, and for how long, and what the longer term ramifications were. And so I felt that, one of the things, even when I talk to people, is even if you can't donate a lot of money to this, it's not necessarily about that. It's also about helping make people aware of what's going on, because maybe somebody else then steps up to do something. So maybe it's that hockey assist that they're making to try and get someone to help out.
And I just like to point out and we've made a point of emphasizing this everywhere we can. It's not just theater workers; it's
Yeah.
Right.
live entertainment. It's live entertainment workers. So
Yeah.
the number of breweries around the country, around the world, that feature musicians, that feature music. All of those musicians have been affected by the pandemic too. So we've pointed out to breweries that even if they feel like they don't have a personal connection to the theater community, although I would venture to say that most of them have a theater community in their town that they could contribute to, that they may feel more connected to live music, and those musicians are feeling the pinch just as much or more than the rest of us. So it really is a one size fits all project, and part of our heavy lifting has been explaining that to people and getting them to understand, and sometimes more successfully than others, but it's a message that I think is worth sharing and that we continue to spread. So.
And of course, even bigger than just performers, you've got the stage managers, tech workers, box office people. I mean, it goes on and on and
Absolutely.
on.
Yeah. Yep.
It's
Ushers, administrators. Yes, there's
Casting director.
and especially in New York, where our ecosystem, everything is connected. So
Right.
people who work in the theater industry are also working in the hospitality industry. And what other industry was damaged so much by the pandemic? The hospitality industry. So
Well-
it really all goes hand in hand, and that's another message we've tried to get out.
I mean, and the perfect example, and because I want to make sure they get credit for all of this, because I know they've been a big partner with you from the beginning. Beer Culture, where you sent me
Right.
to get these great beers.
Yeah.
They're the perfect example of it, because if no one's going to Broadway shows, they're not getting the same kind of tourists that are in there to go in there. I mean, they still
Yeah.
at this point, they're doing okay, but they're still down about 40%. He doesn't have the staff to really bring the kitchen back just yet. People here, I'm glad that they've got such a great campaign saying Broadway is back, but it's not entirely. You guys posted a really great thing on Instagram a couple weeks ago or a month ago. I don't know. Time is still weird in these pandemic times, but you posted a great thing about how that the three big ones, Hamilton, Lion King, Wicked, they're actually struggling in the sense that those are shows that were always reliably always sold out, and they're not. And so if they're not doing what's going on with the shows we're not hearing about.
I
Very
just
true.
posted actually yesterday. There are, as of now, 21 Broadway shows are back up and running, but there are 41 Broadway theaters. So
Okay.
we've barely cracked 50%.
Yep.
And all of those theaters, like we were just talking about, it's not just the people on stage; it's everyone else. So and that ripples out, as you mentioned, beer culture, but it's the stores, it's the hotels, it's everything in Midtown is still struggling. And
Yeah.
Broadway is back is a great marketing tool, and that's what it is. But Broadway's on its way back. It's
Mhm.
not back.
Right.
And to be honest, January and February are two of the most brutal months of the year for Broadway and theater and live entertainment in New York City. It's
Mhm.
just the way it is. It's part, the weather, it's the lack of holidays, it's travel, it's all of that. And that's right around the corner. So, we're at our peril, do we say, we're back, everything's fine, because we've got a long way to go still.
And we're also in this weird place of, there's been article after article recently about how you got your vaccine and you were like, okay, I'm good. We're done. Let's move forward. Let's do this. And just as an example, you're talking about Broadway. Well, Aladdin, the big Disney musical, opened a couple of weeks ago. And then they had 7 or 8 breakthrough cases in the cast. And that completely out, as they say, crushed their coverage. So they had they were out of bodies to put on stage, and also was just not safe to be in the theater anymore. So they shut them down for the weekend. They called the weekend, and then they got back in the next Tuesday, and there were 2 or 3 more cases.
Wow.
So they said, okay, fine, everybody's out for like was it 10 days? They haven't opened yet.
They
still haven't reopened
tonight.
Tonight.
Tonight is their second reopening.
Their second reopening. So
Wow.
they opened and then closed again. And the other thing about, as you well know, the theatrical machinery, you don't just spin up a show like bing, you know what I mean? That's not how it works. And the act of the momentum involved in getting a show back up and performance ready and ready to go, it costs a lot of money. It's the same idea as a restaurant, right? You order in all of your fresh produce, all of your fresh food, and then if you have to close for a week, all that food goes bad. You lose that money, and then you reopen again, and you have to buy all that stuff again. So it's the same. We are not. It's great to say Broadway is back, and it's great to say that the Curtain Up Beer has done a lot of things, but we aren't even close to being done with this project because a lot of people still need a lot of help and are going to continue that for the next. I don't know how long.
And so if you see the Curtain Up Beer anywhere, just buy it. You're helping.
Yeah.
We need your help. The performing arts industry, the live performance industry needs your help. It's a long way off from being recovered. And when I say everyone, we have at various times we've had people all over the country and sometimes internationally listening to this. Curtain Up really is. I know a lot of it is local. I mean, it's all local everywhere it is. That's the wonderful thing about craft beer is every place you go, there's a local scene. So even if it's not New York, it's local. But how far reaching is it? I think you have like 75 breweries that have at some point or another made a version of this. Is that right?
I think we're at 76.
76
that have either made it or committed to making it. Yes.
In 14 states and DC.
15, I think, because Maine came on board just a couple of weeks ago. We had a Maine brewery jump in, which is great. So we're at 15 states and the District of Columbia, and we've reached out internationally. And if anybody's listening right now, no matter where you are in the United States or abroad, we would welcome you. Just get in touch with us. It's very simple to take part.
Yeah, I mean, and just speaking of that, go to curtainup.beer, and you will go right to the page that has all the resources on it. And there's press, there's artwork there, there's a discount on label printing, the recipe is there, all the instructions you need, a direct donation link to the Actors Fund. It's all there on the curtainup.beer page.
And Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, please, no, go ahead, Mark.
I was just going to say we're very responsive. So if people have questions, or or they need to be reassured about something, just shoot us an email. We'll get back to you very quickly, and we'll definitely calm your fears and make you comfortable taking part in this.
Well, you guys have been. I mean, you're reaching out on a national level, not only with what you've done, but also where it's expanding. And I know you've partnered with the Actors Fund, which is a national organization. But you did mention that there's sort of a community-focused element to each of these beers, and you've talked about how you've had everything from, high school drama programs up to Broadway shows. I'm curious if there are any unique collaborations that you wanted to point out in certain cities around the country that have been particularly made you happy.
I have to talk about Alpha Brewing in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, in Alpha, Michigan, which is not even a town, it's a village.
Mhm.
I don't know what the difference is, but I grew up near there. Just as an aside, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan has 30% of the landmass of the state and only 3% of its population. There's nobody up there. But this little tiny village has a craft brewery. And they're really generous. They're always making, charity beers. When we visited them a couple summers ago, mid-pandemic and masked up, we did an episode there, and I was chatting with them, and I mentioned the Curtain Up beer, and they got really excited. As it turns out, there's an old movie theater in the town over, Crystal Falls, Michigan, that has an organ that they use, one of those old school organs that would play music during the silent films before the talkies. And it had been derelict for many, many years. And there were new owners of the theater, and they were rehabbing this organ. And they did their version. I think it was a 1-barrel version, and they donated the majority. They sent some money to the Actors Fund. They donated the majority of it to Crystal Theater, so these folks could buy more organ pipes. I don't know, but we were really touched by that one. I mean, there's been really lots of cool things.
And I'll mention Millhouse Brewing up in Poughkeepsie, who reached out to a local community theater, I think Community Players, and not only did they brew the beer, in the spirit of helping their neighbors out, but they then called them and collaborated on a series of videos with the leadership of the theater to talk about what they'd been through over the last year and what it meant to have this beer made, in honor of them or to help them, and it was just really exciting to see somebody get it, and take it a little further, and then the most recent, the Maine brewery that I just mentioned is Moderation Brewing in Brunswick, Maine, and Maine State Music Theater is up until now predominantly summer stock theater in Brunswick, and I've worked there myself. It's one of my favorite places, but they recently had to cancel. They had been trying to stretch themselves and announced a winter season, and with everything that's happening, they had to cancel it, and that cancellation was the impetus that Moderation needed to get the beer in the tank, make an announcement, and create this relationship with, it's a small town, they all know each other, but now they're working together. So that was really exciting to see that happen. Yeah.
So do you have any kind of or maybe if this is too delicate, let me know. Wondering if you might have a wish list of breweries you're hoping will sign on. Or maybe you don't want to tell us because you don't want to. You want to wait what you've done.
All of them.
All of them.
I want all of them.
Yes.
That's an ambitious and hopefully achievable list.
Yeah. We want to stop hearing the things that a lot of brewers. I would like to stop hearing the things that a lot of breweries say. It's sort of their reflex answer to asks like this, which is like, we can't, we can't do that. We're not going to make. Basically, they're going to say we're not going to make any money, which is, we've already debunked that. So It's really just about them having an affinity for what it is that we're trying to do for the arts and for an industry that's been really and continuing to be just body blow after body blow.
I would say from my perspective, what I would like to see, specifically, I'd like to see more New York City or metro area breweries doing it, because I don't think that everyone is truly thinking about just how important the tourism aspect of the arts is to what we do. Because people come in, they're traveling to see a show, or they go out for dinner before the show. They're going to go to a bar that's going to support the beer that we're selling to those bars. Or they come in for a weekend, they might go and do a little brewery crawl or something like that. And so I think that to me has been the most disappointing thing, is that more people in this area haven't done it. And by this area, I literally mean the greater tri-state area. I'm surprised that there haven't been more people on the West Coast that have done it. Really, in any city that has a larger, I don't know, Mark and Jimmy, you call it what do you call it? The national show, the national tour stops, I guess would be sort of what I would say. I'm surprised specifically about that. So that to me, I would like to see more people in those areas.
I just to piggyback on that, I think there's a real opportunity for breweries there too. I mean, if they make this beer and develop a relationship with the local touring house or the local theaters, which may hold more performances per year than the touring houses, they could get their beer in there on a regular basis. It could be, it could develop a relationship that lasts for years.
I have a story based on that. Okay, so here's a placemat from, for a coaster from the Walking Tree Brewery, which is in Vero Beach, Florida. And in Vero Beach is the Riverside Theater, which does a lot of musicals. And I had worked down there before, reached out to Walking Tree, was like, would you want to do this? And they just went radio silent. And then all of a sudden, the theater called us and was like, hey, this brewery just did a beer called Curtain Up, and they've talked to us and they want us to put it in the theater. And we think this is really great. And they have started to collect. They have started to, and now it looks like the theater is going to run a line of their beer forever.
Oh, really?
Right? Well, that's great.
Yeah. That's very cool.
Yeah, I didn't add that, but they brewed a Kolsch, by the way. Their Curtain Up was a Kolsch, which I kind of love. But it's so they have this thing down there, and they're talking about. I mean, could we do something else if we have a hit show that maybe we bring back? Would you brew beer for that? And it's like, those conversations are happening completely separate of us, which is like our dream in this, to connect these community resources together. And then you have patrons coming out of the theater at intermission going, I know that brewery. I was just there. This is great. Wait, I want to go there again. And so it just one thing leads to another. And it's this wonderful synergy that we can create.
Yeah, I want to piggyback a little bit on what Dave was saying, is that not only reach out to these New York breweries because tourists are here, but also the people who are out of work and are suffering are your neighbors. Whether all the different categories of people who are employed by the performing arts and the hospitality industry and whatever else I'm forgetting to mention right now. These are the people who live around you who are dealing with all of this, and this will help them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, I know you just had a big event at Beer Culture for all of this. Do you have any other big Curtain Up events coming up?
Well, it's funny. The event at Beer Culture seemed to wake a few people up, or at least get their attention, I should say. So we are in talks, and I think they'll both happen. But Dan McLaughlin, who you've recently spent some time with.
Yes.
Very last episode. Yeah, that's why we weren't able there, because we were celebrating our release of that episode, having happy hour at the Pony Bar. So we'll be at the next one.
He is a dear friend of ours, and one of our earliest episodes was at the old school Pony Bar. But he reached
I've seen
out
one
to
or
us
both of you in some of those pictures with the All American shirt.
Oh yeah. But he reached out to us about doing an event at the Pony, which we're in the midst of gathering. A lot of it depends on availability of versions and things like that, but I think we're going to be able to pull together enough to make it worthwhile for everybody. And then the Baroness Huntress, that bar group reached out to us as well, not necessarily just about Curtain Up, but about a Broadway themed night, and they've already been proactive, and they're sort of gathering some beers together for that. So watch this space, because I think both of those will happen. There's no reason for them not to, and we encourage. We've also, I should mention, we've had some really great partners in the bar world, in the restaurant world, hospitality, I should say. Hold Fast in Midtown has been great for us. They've been carrying Curtain Up throughout, and every time there's a new version, they look into it and carry something there. And Beer Authority, once they reopened, thankfully, which we were not sure would happen at one point, they've been good partners too. So yeah, there are a lot of relationships forming, and hopefully the event at Beer Culture was really well attended. People seemed very happy. Everybody drank a lot of beer. Everybody sold a lot of beer. Everybody talked a lot about the arts. So what we're hoping is that the future events will do the same thing.
Yeah,
Great.
That was a fun night.
And I would say if anyone out there, if there's a favorite brewery of yours near where you live who hasn't participated yet, don't leave all the work to Jimmy and Mark. Ask them yourselves. Say, hey, I heard about this great thing. You should do it. I will come here more often if you do it. This is important.
Yeah. Well, and in addition to that, anything we should know or be excited about coming out of Gun Hill in the near future?
Well, there's always stuff to be excited about. No,
I mean, every time I see your name on a tap, I'm excited. But anything I should really be looking forward to?
We just canned today a new sour beer that's sort of Halloween themed, with Wolf and Warrior Brewery, which is up in White Plains. The beer's called also participated in Curtain Up. So that's another thing about the whole Curtain Up, is that it also fostered collaboration amongst breweries. So we've, it was either we brought a lot of breweries that we've collaborated with in the past. Likewise, we've actually collaborated subsequently with breweries that participated in Curtain Up that we didn't have a relationship with. So this was our second beer that we've done with Wolf and Warrior since they signed on to do Curtain Up. But it's a sour with blood orange, blackberry, and raspberry called The Fruits Have Eyes. They're really big into 80s movies, and so I let the brewers all decide what they wanted to call this one, and that was the winning name. But it just came out today. I haven't even had it yet, but that's coming out. We're actually doing a pop-up event this Friday over in Riverdale at a coffee shop. We're taking over the coffee shop after they close, called Early Bird Coffee. And then we have a couple things coming up down the pipeline. We have our homebrew competition in November. So if anybody's any home brewers or want to enter, they should definitely reach out, where we brew the winning person's beer. And then in January, we'll have our second barrel aged beer festival. That we did the first one back in January of 2020, and obviously we couldn't do one last year. But so this will be the second time we're doing it. It'll be from breweries from all over the city, the state, the region. We're still finalizing the list, but that'll be Martin Luther King weekend in January.
Excellent. Yeah, the barrel age thing. I should say, since we haven't mentioned our sponsor this episode, I went to our sponsor, Astoria Beer and Cheese Ditmars, a few days ago, and they had your new Fort Ticonderoga, the bear aged in rum barrels, which was so good. I went back the next day and had it again. So, really, really like that one.
Thank you.
All right, I guess I guess that's the end of the end of the story of Curtain Up for now. But keep looking at that. Keep looking at that website. Talk to your brewers. And
I was going to say, if people want to keep in touch with you, besides going to curtainup.beer, where else can they find you, and how can they get in touch with you?
TheHappyHourGuys.com or Happy Hour Guys on Twitter or Instagram.
Excellent. What's your next episode going to be about? Or you want to tease that?
We have a bunch of footage from both of these events that we're going to boil down into something that should be a lot of fun. So that's what's in the can at the moment, and then we have to talk about what's next. Yeah, figure out what's next.
Excellent. Well, the Beer Avengers themselves have had an interesting week. We're hoping to talk soon about our wonderful experience recently at Blocktoberfest at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Mm-hmm. Dave, I don't know if you were there personally or not.
I was. Maybe I poured you some beer. I don't know.
It's very likely. We were all wearing these T-shirts.
I was behind the booth for probably 2.5 hours of the event.
Beautiful day.
I feel like when I went to Gun Hill, you were so near the main entrance that there were a lot of people crowded around there. So I didn't do much. Didn't start getting doing chit chat until my first 10 or 15 samples.
And that was purely based on location, right? Not because you needed to lubricate the pipes a little bit.
I would have gone to Gun Hell regardless. You know that. I was like, oh, look, wow, Gun Hill's right here, I think was more kind of the way I responded to it. In fact, it took us a while to get to the backside of it because I think we went to some of those places multiple
More
times.
than once.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
What did you guys think of the venue?
It was, it was all right. It was a lot more condensed than I expected it to be. The fact that there were two different, like every table was two breweries. I mean, the only other thing I'd really been to like that before was the one they did at LIC Flea a couple times with the Queens Beer Festival, and that's a lot more spread out. This was like we first got there, it was like, is that it? And then we got closer, we were like, oh no, okay, there's a lot going on.
Well, had you ever been to Blocktoberfest at the Well before?
I had not. No,
Okay.
I'd never been to Blocktoberfest in any sense before. All I do, like, I understand that they're having the unlimited samples was a new policy, and I fully
Yes.
support that policy.
It was a bit. I'm on the board for the Brewers Guild, and it was a big point.
Okay.
It was a big point of discussion was how we were gonna do it, because the way we've done it in the past is you pay an entry fee and then you get a certain number of drink tickets for either and you can use them for either a full pour or a half pour, and then you continue to add on as you want. And it's more of just like a general hanging out as opposed to doing it this way. Everyone, you ask 5 people, you get 5 different opinions, but it seemed like it was pretty well received doing it this way this year.
Yeah, the only thing I would change as far as that goes would be, I would say I really like the idea of places that will do a small glass souvenir cup that's your tasting cup for the whole time. Just because
part of the reason why we didn't do that was because we were concerned about being outside, and we've seen it enough where people drop and then they just shatter, and then it becomes or people are trying to snag another one. And ultimately the guild is a non-for-profit, so we use events like this and opening bash in February to try and raise money for everything that we do over the course of the year for all the members. And so the more we spend on stuff like that, it ends up, and the expenses this year were much different than they had been in the past. This is the first time we've ever done it here, but that is duly noted.
Yeah, it didn't spoil it at all, but that's something that I've enjoyed about other ones that I've gone to. But we had a wonderful time. It was great. Yeah. Also, want to give a shout out to our friends at Ebbs Brewing, who are just opening their tap room. We went there; they're doing their soft opening night right now. Beer Wonder and myself and our friend the Globe Hopper were all there last night. I also realized I forgot to give him proper credit. At first, we thought two of us were going to be having Sloop today. But thanks to the Globe Hopper, I managed to get my hands on that wonderful keg and lantern. And fortunately, I have a backup of the Torch and Crown, so I have a feeling I'll be drinking that very soon as well. But they really nice tap room there. I think they're having their official grand opening about 4 days after this episode is released. But check their Instagram to make sure about all of that.
Very cool.
Is there anything else you think we need to cover, Beer Wonder?
I feel like we've had Gun Hill and the Happy Hour guys here. I mean, we've hit the top. I don't know if there's anywhere else to go at this point.
I think you're right about that. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming. This has been a wonderful hour learning out about all of this, and I'm looking forward to my next Curtain Up and the one after that, and the one after that, and looking forward to a world where you finally do say, like, I think theater is back. I think everyone is fully recovered. And really what's our next project?
Yeah. The cap on that will be having a Curtain Up in a Broadway theater while watching a Broadway show, right?
Yes. Absolutely. All right. Well, and as all of you know out there, if you have any questions, any comments, any hopefully nothing violent that you want to have, a request you have of us, you can reach out to us at thebeervengers@gmail.com, at all our various social medias at @thebeervengers. That's on Instagram, that's on Facebook, that's on Twitter. Am I leaving anything out, Beer Wonder?
No, except come back in 2 weeks for more Beer Venger adventures with us.
Absolutely. And we say this every time, but I feel it even more so because I feel there's so much of your individual stories that we need to hear. So, Jimmy, Mark, Dave,
yes,
come back anytime.
Well, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. This has been great.
Yeah, thank you so
And-
much. We really appreciate it. It's great to
Yeah.
just sit and talk to you guys. So,
Yes, for
For
sure.
us
Yeah.
too. For us too.
Yeah.
It's-
And
it's-
don't be shy to come back and visit us up in the Bronx.
Oh, anytime.
Absolutely will. All right. And oh, look, I think I see Huck there with his uke.
A
He's
wandering
ready to
Huck.
play us out.
With the beer Vengers, beer Vengers, beer Vengers.
We're the Beer Avengers.